The Selection, Chapter 2. I crawled deeper into the treehouse. It wasn't much more than a 5 by 5 foot cube. Even Gerard couldn't stand up straight in here, but I loved it. There was the one opening to crawl into, and then a tiny window on the opposite wall. I'd placed an old step stool in the corner to act as a desk for the candle, and a little rug that was so old it was barely better than sitting on the slates. It wasn't much, but it was my haven. Ah, haven. Please don't call me gorgeous. First my mum, then May, now you. It's getting on my nerves. By the way Aspen was looking at me, I could tell I wasn't helping my I'm not pretty case. He smiled. I can't help it. You're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. You can't hold it against me for saying it the only time I'm allowed to. He reached up and cupped my face, and I looked deeper into his eyes. That was all it took. His lips were on mine, and I couldn't think about anything else. There was no selection, no miserable family, no Ilya itself. There was only Aspen's hands on my back pulling me closer, Aspen's breath on my cheeks. My fingers went to his black hair, still wet from his shower. He always took showers at night, and tangled themselves into a perfect little knot. He smelt like his mother's homemade soap. I dreamt about that smell. We broke apart, and I couldn't help but smile. His legs were propped wide open, so I sat sideways between them like a little kid who needed cradling. Sorry, I'm not in a better mood. It's just that we got this stupid notice in the post today. Ah, yes, the letter, Aspen sighed. We got two. Of course, the twins had just turned 16. Aspen studied my face as he spoke. He did that when we were together, like he was recommitting my face to memory. It had been over a week, and we both got anxious when it was more than a few days. And I looked him over too. Not Caste excluded, Aspen was, by far, the most attractive guy in town. He had dark hair and green eyes, and his smile that made you think he had a secret. He was tall, but not too tall, thin, but not too thin. I noticed in the dim light that there were tiny bags under his eyes. No doubt he'd been working late all week. His black t-shirt was worn to the threads in several places, just like the shabby pair of jeans he wore almost every day. If only I could sit and patch them up for him. That was my great ambition, not to be Ilya's princess, to be Aspen's. It hurt me to be away from him. Some days I went crazy wondering what he was doing, and when I couldn't handle it, I practiced music. I really had Aspen to thank me for being the musician that I was. He drove me to distraction, and that was bad. Aspen was a 6. 6s were servants and only a step up from 7s, in that they were better educated and trained for indoor work. Aspen was smarter than anyone knew and devastatingly handsome, but it was atypical for a woman to marry down. A man from a lower caste could ask you for your hand, but it was rare to get a yes. And when anyone married into a different caste, they had to fill out paperwork and wait for something like 90 days before any of the other legal things you needed could be done. I'd heard more than one person say it was to give people a chance to change their minds. So us being this personal and out, well past Ilya's curfew, we could both get in some serious trouble. Not to mention the hell I'd get from my mother. But I loved Aspen. I loved Aspen for nearly 2 years, and he loved me. And he sat there stroking my hair. I couldn't imagine entering the selection. How do you feel about it? The selection, I asked. Okay, I guess. He's got to find a girl somehow. Poor guy. I could hear the sarcasm, but I really wanted to know his opinion. Aspen. Okay, well, part of me thinks it's kind of sad. Doesn't the prince date? Can he seriously not get anyone? Can't he seriously get anyone? If they try to wed the princesses to other princes, why don't they do the same for him? There's got to be some royal out there good enough for him. I don't get it. So there's that. But then, he sighed. Part of me thinks it's a good idea. It's exciting. He's going to fall in love in front of everyone, and I like that someone gets a happily ever after and all that. Anybody could be our next queen. It's kind of hopeful. Makes you think that I could have a happily ever after too. His fingers were tracing my lips. Those green eyes searched deep into my soul. I felt that spark of connection that I've only ever had with him. I wanted our everly ever after too. So, you're encouraging the twins to enter then? I asked. Yes, I mean, we've all seen the prince from time to time. He looks like a nice enough guy. A snot, no doubt, but friendly, and the girls are so eager. It's funny to watch. They were dancing in the house when I came home today, and no one can deny it would be good for the family. Mum's hopeful because we have 2 entries from the house instead of one. That was the first good news about this horrible competition. I couldn't believe I'd been so self-absorbed that I even thought about Aspen's sisters. If one of them went, if one of them won, Aspen, do you realise what that would mean? If Camper or Celia won? He closed his hold tighter around me, his lips brushing my forehead. One hand moved up and down my back. It's all I've thought about today, he said. The gritty sound of his voice pushed out every other thought. All I wanted was for Aspen to touch me, kiss me, and that's exactly where the night would have gone, but his stomach growled and snapped me out of it. Oh, hey, I bought us a snack, I said lightly. Oh, yeah? I could tell he was trying not to sound excited, but some of his eagerness came through. You'll love this chicken. I made it. I found my little parcel and brought it to Aspen, who, to his merit, nibbled it all slowly. I took one bite of the apple so he'd feel like it was for us, but then I set it down and let him have the rest. Where meals were a worry at my house, they were a disaster at Aspen's. He had much steadier work than we did, but he got paid significantly less. There was never enough food for his family. He was the oldest of 7, and in the same way I'd step up to help as soon as I could. Aspen had stepped aside. He passed his share of the little food they had down to his siblings and to his mum, who was always tired from working. His dad had died 3 years ago, and Aspen's family depended on him for almost everything. I watched with satisfaction as he licked the spices from the chicken off his fingers and tore into the bread. I couldn't imagine when he'd eaten last. You're such a good cook. You're going to make someone very fat and happy one day, he said, his mouth half full with a bite of apple. I'm going to make you fat and happy. You know that. Ah, to be fat. We laughed, and he told me about life since the last time I'd seen him. He'd done some clerical work for one of the factories, and it was going to carry him through next week too. His mum had finally gotten into a routine of house cleaning for a few of the twos in our area. The twins were both sad because their mum had made them drop their after-school drama class so they could work more. I'm going to see if I can pick up some work on Sundays, to make a little more money. I hate for them to give up something they've loved so much. He said this with hope, like he really could do it. Aspen Ledger, don't you dare. You work too hard as it is. Oh, meh, he whispered into my ear. It gave me chill bumps. You know how Canberra and Celia are. They need to be around people. They can't be cooped up cleaning and writing all the time. It's just not in their nature. But it's not fair for them to expect you to do it all, Aspen. I know exactly how you feel about your sisters, but you need to watch out for yourself. If you really love them, you'll take better care of their caregiver. Don't you worry about a thing, Mayor. I think there are some good things on the horizon. I wouldn't be doing it forever, but he would, because his family would always need money. Aspen, I know you could do it, but you're not a superhero. You can't expect to be able to provide everything for everyone you love. You can't do everything. We were quiet for a moment. I hope he was taking my words to heart, realizing that if he didn't slow down, he'd wear himself out. It wasn't anything new for a 6, 7, or 8 to just die of exhaustion. I couldn't bear that. I pressed myself even closer to his chest, trying to get the image of it out of my head. America? Yes, I whispered. Are you going to enter the selection? No, of course not. I don't want anyone to think I'd even consider marrying some stranger. I love you, I said earnestly. You want to be a 6? Always hungry? Always worried? He asked. I could hear the pain in his voice, but also the genuine question. If I had to choose between sleeping in a palace with people waiting on me, or the 3-room apartment with Aspen's family, which one did I really want? Aspen, we'll make it. We're smart. We'll be fine. I willed it to be true. You know, that's not how it'll be, Mayor. I'll still have to support my family. I'm not the abandoning type. I squirmed a little in his arms. And if we had kids? When we have kids. And we'll just be careful about it. Who says we have to have more than two? You know that's not something we can control. I could hear the anger building in his voice. I couldn't blame him. If you were wealthy enough, you could regulate having a family. If you were a four or worse, they left you to fend for yourself. This had been the subject of many an argument for us over the last 6 months, when we seriously started trying to find a way to be together. Children were the wild card. The more you had, the more there were to work. But then again, so many hungry mouths. We fell quiet again, both unsure of what to say. Aspen was a passionate person. He tended to get a little carried away in argument. He had gotten better about catching himself before he got too angry, and I knew that's what he was doing now. I didn't want him to worry or be upset. I really thought we could handle it. If we just planned for everything we could, we'll make it through everything we couldn't. Maybe I was too optimistic. Maybe I was just too far in love, but I really believe that anything Aspen and I wanted badly enough, we could make it happen. I think you should do it, he said suddenly. Do what? Enter the selection. I think you should do it. I glared at him. Are you out of your mind? Mayor, listen to me. His mouth was right to my ear. It wasn't fair. He knew this distracted me. When his voice came, it was breathy and slow, like he was saying something romantic, though what he was suggesting was anything but. If you had a chance for something better than this, and you didn't take it because of me, I'd never forgive myself. I couldn't stand it. I let out my breath in a quick huff. It's so ridiculous. Think of the thousands of girls entering. I wouldn't even get picked. If you won't get picked, then why does it matter? His hands were rubbing up and down my arm now. I couldn't argue when he did that. All I want is for you to enter. I just want you to try, and if you go, then you go. And if you don't, then at least I wouldn't have to beat myself up for holding you back. But I don't love him, Aspen. I don't even like him. I don't even know him. No one knows him, that's the thing though. Maybe you would like him. Aspen, stop. I love you. And I love you. He kissed me slowly to make his point. And if you love me, you'll do this. So I won't go crazy wondering what if. When he made it about him, I didn't stand a chance. Because I couldn't hurt him. I was doing everything I could to make his life easier. And I was right. There was absolutely no way I'd get chosen. So I should just go through the motions. I please everyone. And when I didn't get picked, everyone would drop it. Please, he breathed into my ear. The feeling sent chills down my body. Fine, I whispered. I'll do it. But know now that I don't want to be some princess. All I want is to be your wife. He stroked my hair. You will be. It must have been the light, or the lack therefore, because I swore his eyes swelled up when he said that. Aspen had been through a lot, but I had seen him cry only once, when they whipped his brother in the square. Little Jemmy had stolen some fruit off a cart in the market. An adult would have had a brief trial and then, depending on the value of what was stolen, either been thrown into jail or sentenced to death. Jemmy was only 9, so he was beaten. Aspen's mum didn't have the money to take him to a proper doctor, so Jemmy had scars all up and down his back from the incident. That night, I waited by my window to see if Aspen would climb up into the treehouse. When he did, I snuck out to him. He cried in my arms for an hour about how if he only worked harder, if he only done better, Jemmy wouldn't have to steal. How it was so unfair that Jemmy had to hurt because Aspen had failed. It was agonizing because it wasn't true. But I couldn't tell him that. He wouldn't hear me. Aspen carried the needs of everyone he loved on his back. Somehow, miraculously, I became one of those people. So I made my load as light as I could. Would you sing for me? Give me something to fall asleep to? I smiled. I loved giving him songs, so I settled in close and sang a quiet lullaby. He let me sing for a few minutes before his fingers started moving accidentally below my ear. He pulled the neck of my shirt wide open and kissed along my neck and ears. Then he pulled up my short sleeve and kissed as far down my arm as he could reach. It made my breath hitch. Almost every time I sang, he did this. I think he enjoyed the sound of my raspy breathing more than the singing itself. Before long, we were tangled together on the dirty thin rug. Aspen pulled me on top of him, and I brushed his straggly hair with my fingers, hypnotized by the feel. He kissed me feverishly and hard. I felt my fingers dig into his waist, my back, my hips, my thighs. I was always surprised that he didn't leave little finger-shaped bruises all over me. We were cautious, always stopping shy of the things we really wanted, as if breaking curfew wasn't bad enough. Still, whatever our limitations were, I couldn't imagine anyone in Australia had more passion than we did. I love you, America singer. As long as I live, I'll love you. There was some deep emotion in his voice, and it caught me off guard. I love you, Aspen. You'll always be my prince. And he kissed me until the candle burned itself out. It had been hours, and my eyes were heavy. Aspen never worried about his sleep, but he was always concerned about mine. So I wearily climbed down the ladder, taking my plate and my penny. When I sang, Aspen ate it up, loved it. From time to time, when he had anything at all, he'd given me a penny to pay for my song. If he managed to scrounge up a penny, I wanted him to give it to his family. There was no doubt they'd eaten every last one. But then, having these pennies, since I couldn't bear to spend them, was like having a reminder of everything Aspen was willing to do for me, of everything I meant to him. Back in my room, I pulled my tiny jar of pennies out from its hiding spot and listened to the happy sound of the newest one hitting its neighbours. I waited for 10 minutes, watching out of the window, until I saw Aspen's shadow climb down and run down the back road. I stayed awake a little while longer, thinking of Aspen, and how much I loved him, how it felt to be loved by him. I felt special, priceless, irreplaceable. No queen on any throne could possibly feel more important than I did. I fell asleep with that thought securely etched into my heart. That was the end of chapter 2.